Here we are, 9:46, so I'm actually late. So look at that. The senator was here on time. I'm actually late. John Barrasso, our United States Senator, is in studio with me. Good morning. How are you today?
Great to be back with you. I see a lot down here. You know, the Cowboy games were here for every game, but I thought the ribbon cutting.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The High Performance Center is unbelievable. That to me has to be better and finer in terms of a facility than multiple pro teams have.
Yeah, it is a gorgeous facility. I enjoy it. We're in there every week for, well, if it's a home game, post-game press conferences, and every week for Coach Bull's press conference. It is a fantastic building. When I got a chance to fully walk around after it was complete that same day in ribbon cutting, I was just astounded at all that they put into it.
And as a recruiting tool for the university, and not only do we have great bang for the buck, beautiful facility, great people, it's an amazing recruitment tool. I think any young person coming out of high school comes and sees that, says this is the place for me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Let's talk first of all about something big that got signed into law yesterday by the President, your Water Infrastructure Act. What exactly is this, for those of us who may be unfamiliar with it?
Sure. Well, you know, the President in his State of the Union called for major infrastructure legislation.
Okay.
Water infrastructure, ports and dams, irrigation systems, reservoirs, drinking water, wastewater, all of those things that impact the entire country. And you know, you hear a lot about this confrontation going on in the conflict in Washington. This passed the Senate 99-1.
Nice.
We were able to, and I chair the committee that brought this through. The President was happy to sign it yesterday. We had it through the House, through the Senate. It shows that work actually gets done to help and benefit and move the country along. And there are about 15 projects in there that are really important to Wyoming, because water is the most important thing in so many ways in Wyoming through our entire history. And from the agriculture community, our farmers, our ranchers, the irrigation, the Wind River Reservation, what they need there, we've been able to do so much. And we've had a lot of people from Wyoming come back to testify what the needs were.
Okay.
And the President had me in the Oval Office with him yesterday afternoon for the signing. It was really a great opportunity to be there to thank the President for what he has signed into law, and then flew back to Denver last night, drove up and got here. I was just over at Snowy Range Academy because they were just identified as one of only 3 blue ribbon schools in the entire state.
Wow.
And it's quite an accomplishment and a recognition of the students, yes, but also the teachers, the parents, all those who are committed to the education of the young people.
How'd that visit go this morning?
Really good. You know, we talked about different presidents that came here to Laramie. You had Teddy Roosevelt, who came and gave the commencement speech in 1903, and talked about John Kennedy, who came here in 1963 in the field house. Teddy Roosevelt spoke from Old Maine. 10,000 people showed up in 1903. That was like everybody, you know.
Yeah, back then, yeah.
And he said, "You've received here a wonderful education." He said, "More important than the education," he said, "is the character of the people." And then he said, "People of Wyoming, I believe in you and in your future." And then John Kennedy in 63 at the field house, you know, it was built for 5,000 and 13,000 people in there.
Wow.
And at the time, you know, he talked a lot about resources, about oil, gas, coal. He talked about Trona. Now, you know, he's Boston, had a Boston accent, and he kept talking about soda rash like it was a skin condition, you know.
Yeah, no, a little bit different than soda ash, I'd say.
But he left people with something inspirational to them. He said that the future belongs to those who seize it. And both great lessons that I wanted to share with these young people today at the Snowy Range Academy, because the opportunities we have in Wyoming for education are like nothing else, especially the Hathaway Scholarship at the university and the value for young people in Wyoming.
Let's talk about another piece of legislation you recently introduced, which is to repeal the federal electric vehicle tax credit. There's some other parts to that. Explain why you go down that road.
Well, right now the wear and tear on the roads are by all the vehicles on the roads.
Okay.
We're getting more and more electric vehicles, which is good. But I don't believe we need to continue to subsidize them. At the time that these subsidies of $7,500 per vehicle were put in place, they were trying to get to the point where people would start buying electric vehicles. Well, now, Tesla and others, the number of vehicles on the road is sufficient and significant. And now you have Mercedes and Porsche and different companies, high-end vehicle companies, saying, we want to now come into the United States with electric vehicles, and oh, by the way, you can get $7,500 tax credit off of a $100,000 car. I don't think we ought to be doing that.
Okay.
Plus, the wear and tear on the roads, and when I was in the state senate in Wyoming, I chaired the transportation committee.
Right.
And I will tell you, the wear and tear on our roads, and the I-80 right out here, doesn't matter if it's electric, doesn't matter if it's a truck, doesn't matter if it's natural gas powered, doesn't matter whatever it is, the weight of the vehicle on that and the number of miles driven has an impact. So, for folks that say, well, just keep raising the gas tax, if you have fewer and fewer people filling up with gasoline, it doesn't seem to be the right answer to me. So I think that with what's happening out there, I think it's time to end this additional subsidy for electric vehicles and say they ought to be participating and paying their fair share of the repair work and the maintenance that needs to be done on our highways and interstates.
All right, we're visiting with U.S. Senator John Barrasso. He's live in studio with me here on this Wednesday edition of Let Me Live on KOWB. You're getting ready for a big debate tomorrow in Casper. You and Gary Trout have been kind of going back and forth. Let's talk about, what do you feel you've done here in these last 6 years as our senator that prompts you and you feel like you can get reelected again? What's been the discussion out there that you've been getting from voters, from residents?
Well, what I hear from people, and I've been in the state senate for 5 years. I was a practicing orthopedic surgeon in Casper for 24 years. Before that, and now been in the United States Senate since we lost Craig Thomas. And
right.
That's how that came about. What I continue to hear from people around the state is thanks for coming home every weekend. Thanks for traveling the state. Thanks for being there always for every home game. Here when we saw each other at the ribbon cutting.
Right.
We were here at the alumni event Friday night where I spoke for the distinguished alumni. So people say thanks for continuing to come back, and thanks for fighting for us. It's thanks for fighting for our jobs and our economy. These last 2 years, you asked about 6, but the last 2 years I think have been the most productive time in the whole time I've been in the United States Senate. We have a new president. We have a direction for the country to focus on jobs and the economy, growth, and we have a strong and growing economy, a healthy economy.
Okay.
We're using our resources much more wisely. With our energy, the president, and through getting rid of the regulations, we've unleashed American energy. Our unemployment rate is now in Wyoming at an all-time low. Consumer confidence is high. We've gotten rid of this tepid 2% economic growth that we had prior to these last 2 years. Now we have 4% economic growth, and we put on the bench conservative judges that, with Justice Scalia's death, Neil Gorsuch, who has deep roots in Wyoming. Scalia spoke here at the university to the law students. They had a lunch here for him up at the Wildcatter Suite when he was here a couple years before he died.
Yeah.
When we put people on the courts in his mindset of the job of a judge is to apply the law, not legislate from the bench. The Constitution is a legal document, not a living document. It was built for certainty. So we've accomplished all of those things in just the last 2 years. And then you take a look at the AML money, the abandoned mine land money, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of Wyoming's.
Right.
You say, what have you done? Right. For me, it's getting that money that Washington was trying to steal from us, getting it back to Wyoming. And that took a huge fight, and I was able to, along with Mike, and then at the time, Cynthia Lummis, pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're visiting with Senator Barrasso. We're running up against the 10 o'clock end of this program, but I wanted to ask you, some people, though, would look at it, instead of saying most productive, might be the most divisive last couple of years. How would you respond to that question?
Well, I would say that if they have the news turned on all the time, that's what they're seeing.
Right.
But yesterday I was in the Oval Office with the president where he signed a major water infrastructure bill for the country. It passed the Senate 99-1. Won't get much press, wasn't in the headlines anywhere around the country today, but yet you had Republicans and Democrats with the president in the Oval Office as he signed it. Last week, major opioid legislation, not much press. The know the cost of your drug, getting rid of the gag order on Medicare as well as other pharmaceuticals so that pharmacists can talk to patients about the cheapest way to get that medicine. There used to be a gag order. Bipartisan, passed overwhelmingly. So I think that what gets covered for the most part are the fights, and what gets less or hardly any coverage are the things that we're actually doing together cooperatively. And the University of Wyoming, Mark Northam, then Dean of the School of Energy Resource, we had him back and testifying on bipartisan legislation. And here I am, one of the most conservative members of the Senate, Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, one of the most liberal members. We have bipartisan legislation to do what Mark and the university are trying to do with coal, with carbon dioxide, with capture, sequestration, with the integrated test center in Gillette, with the research dollars to find ways to use that carbon dioxide in a productive way, in a profitable way, rather than an expensive way. So again, we passed one of those, got it signed into law. We're working on another, got it out of our committee, bipartisan, unanimous, and Bernie Sanders supported it. You know, and I have the most conservative member. So you don't get a lot of, that doesn't make a lot of press, but there's a lot of bipartisan, productive work, helpful to Wyoming, that I'm continuing to work on and get passed.
Now your opponent, which you'll debate tomorrow, Gary Chauner up in Casper, doesn't feel like you get up thinking about Wyoming. He's claiming that you get up thinking about PACs and earning money and fundraising, all that stuff, and not necessarily responding to the Wyoming residents. What is your response to that, real quick?
I'm home every weekend. Travel the state, visit with people, listen to what they have to say. Every weekend, people know they can see me, respond to emails. My home number is in the book. I was talking to a group of students, and I said, my home number is in the book. This kid says, where do you get this book? So it's the times in which we live.
Yeah.
And the students at Snowy Range Academy said, what's your job? And I said, my job is to really fight for the people of Wyoming every day, for our jobs, our economy, our environment, our people, our places, our values, our resources, and that's what I do. I do it every day. We are a team with Mike Enzi and now Liz Cheney, one for all and all for Wyoming, and in the fight every day for Wyoming, for Wyoming's future. And people can say what they want. That's how I wake up every morning. What can I do today to help improve the lives of the people of Wyoming?
Well, good luck in the debate tomorrow. That'll be interesting. I know we've got a gubernatorial debate that'll be coming in town tomorrow, and then that'll be kind of ahead of your debate, so that people, I think, can catch both of the debates. But it's going to be an interesting one to see how it turns out here in less than 2 weeks.
And it'll be on Wyoming Public Television, so
right.
People can see it if they can't get, probably impossible to get to both.
Yes.
But you can tune in and see and hear about both.
Real quick, anything else that you'd like to say to the voters before I let you go today?
Well, it's such a privilege for my wife Bobby and I to continue to represent the people of Wyoming. It's a trust we take very seriously. We want to be helpful. People know that we have offices around the state. Hats off to the veterans, the people that and the soldiers, those who continue to fight. No state does it like Wyoming in terms of volunteers. I've talked to the young students about that because, as Ronald Reagan said, actually I stopped at McDonald's and saw a bunch of guys sitting around, and a couple of them with their Navy hats on. And he said that it's this is something that we earn. We have to fight for. We have to protect. We have to defend our freedoms. It's not passed along in the bloodstream.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, albeit a little limited, but I appreciate you jumping on the airwaves with me.
Thanks for having me, David.